here, my friend.
This is the emergency broadcast system. We are under attack by conventional forces of the Russian army. It is believed the lead waves were disguised as commercial charter flights. Communications have broken down with other parts of the country. Large areas of the Midwest may have been overrun.
They know who all of you are. They're looking for you.
You're 40 miles behind enemy lines.
I just want to go home. They took a lot of people away.
Where's my dad, Mr. Eckert?
I want to love somebody, Andy. I'm gonna die before it happens.
They're gonna kill us! All of us!
So why should we be different?
Because we live here!
Not bad for a bunch of kids, huh?
Mama'd be real proud.
Hello, welcome back to Late to the Party, folks. This week's movie is Nate's Choice, which is me, and this is about 1984's Red Dawn. And it was originally called 10 Soldiers. It's an 84 American action film directed by John Milius with a screenplay by Kevin Reynolds and Milius. It stars a great Rat Pack cast of Patrick Swayze, C. Thomas Howell, Leah Thompson, Ben Johnson, Harry Dean Stanton, Ron O'Neal, William Smith, Powers Boothe, and before he had AIDS, Charlie Sheen.
Jesus.
Producer.
That's like a medical history. You should be giving away people's medical info.
Dude, we're gonna get banned for HIPAA violations.
Spoiler alert. All right, this movie made $8.24 million. And it's got a 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb, 48% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 53% on Metacritic. And it's got a 4.3 on good old Walmart.com.
Well, by golly, that's a good movie.
Right? I tell you what. All right, so there's the plot's a little bit far-fetched in a nuclear area, or in a nuclear era, when certain powers would go to war against each other. It's been assumed that any acts of war between those superpowers would be a guarantee of mutually assured destruction in a nuclear manner. But I think they try to go around that with this movie and explain that by them detonating nukes on the inside at the silos before counter attack was able to happen. And our movie here is set in Colorado, where some kids who escaped the initial invasion were able to fight a guerrilla warfare from the Colorado Rockies and take out the joint force of Russia and Cuba. So we'll start with the Scots. Did you guys see this movie initially in 84 when it was released? No, so this is the first time you've watched it?
This is the first time I've seen it. I've seen a lot of clips from it, but I've never actually sat and watched the whole movie before.
Okay. And Josh?
I've probably seen it dozens of times.
Okay. So it had been probably since the mid to late 80s that I saw it. And I did once again have a different experience. The nostalgia didn't match up with the movie. Did you find this movie dated, or did you think it would still pass today, Liz?
I mean, I found it dated only in the fact that they're not our enemies right now. And they did a remake. Didn't they do a remake of this to make it more like fit with the modern like times and modern enemies and fun stuff like that?
They did a remake with Chris Helmsworth. I think it was in 2011, and the bad guys were North Koreans, which seems even way more. They'd have to come over here with like canoes to try to attack the states. You know, aside from shooting missiles, they couldn't launch any kind of ground war. I mean, aside from, you know, in my opinion, and I'm no military tactician, but anybody wanted to go to war with the states would have to either annihilate us with weapons from afar, but they wouldn't be able to wage any sort of ground campaign. We're way too well armed as a people. So Josh, what are your thoughts on this one?
We're having technical difficulties here, sorry. I blame you, Josh.
Why
Josh.
is it my fault?
We're being attacked.
It's okay. Editing is magical.
Sorry.
Ask him the question again.
Yeah, what was the question again?
Do you think this movie's horribly dated, or does it hold up for a modern viewer, Josh?
It is a little bit dated, only because of the equipment that's in the movie, the cars that everyone's driving. But I think, when we were watching the movie, even you mentioned that you're like, oh, is this like a narrative of what's going to happen to us today? And I didn't think so. I mean, I forgot that the movie sets up a lot of the background in the beginning with the kind of the scrolling narrative that NATO was disbanded, the United States stands alone, and that there was a revolution in Mexico where Cuba and other communist forces had helped stage the revolution. And I think that kind of helps explain how the communists kind of divide our country in half by taking the middle of it, from the Rockies to the Mississippi. So it's, you know, strategically it seems, at least on the surface, kind of plausible, but I'm with you, Nate, that those oceans provide a pretty radical natural barrier to any kind of land invasion from any force that would be reasonable. So I mean, in that respect, I guess it's not necessarily that it's dated, only implausible.
Okay. Isaac, have you seen this movie before?
It's my first time.
Oh, wow. I should have got you flowers or something at least.
Or some beads.
Some beads? All right, so what do you think, man? Is this movie a product of its time?
It is a product of its time, but it's also damn, just lost my train of thought. Seeing Jennifer Grey without her new nose was pretty funny to see. I don't know, dude. I just finished watching it. I was intrigued. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was pretty sad, you know, the ending.
Yeah.
I wouldn't rewatch this movie. It's not for me. I was expecting funny, Brat Pack type things because you said it. And then when I watched it, I was like, wow, that's pretty fucking serious.
I didn't say it was going to have Brat Pack themes. It just has the Brat Pack in it.
I know, but when I heard Brat Pack, I think of I don't know. I think of funny.
You're thinking they were going to be playing Simple Minds or something?
Yeah. They were gonna play Risk the whole time, and it was gonna be put in there.
Dancing in the hallway.
Games. I don't know. I really didn't know what to expect from this movie. I didn't watch the remake. I didn't really pay attention to any of it. I didn't know what the plot was going to be. And when I watched it, I was just like, oh shit, invasion. I like how it starts off like everyone's at school and the teacher's like, oh, I got this. And it just gets gunned down. I was like, oh shit, it's real.
Yeah, it seemed like they launched their attack at the high school. I was like, wow, they don't go in town at all, huh?
They drop right into the school. Let's start by chopping down the children first and then get the adults.
Which is crazy, right? Because they go into the school shooting up kids, and yet all of the people that they round up from around town, based on the records that they pulled from the gun shop, they capture those guys.
Yeah, and the school too, because remember they're like talking about the Boy Scouts and how like that's got to be some form of military, even though it's just kids.
I mean, it is, or at least traditionally, it was like a introduction to those,
like to the ROTC and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Jose, had you seen this movie before? I know you hadn't seen this movie.
I was like, why you even asking that question? Guys never even seen Batman.
What do you think of this movie, Jose?
No, this was the first time. And I was kind of on the same boat as Isaac. I had seen and heard different references to it. So I thought it was going to be something like they go into the woods and then they set up all these like, I thought it was going to be like a cross between Rambo First Blood and Home Alone.
Yeah.
And I was like, I legitimately thought that. But when it started diving into it, I was like, yo, this is a very serious movie. And this is actually like, it makes you think a lot, especially with that ending. The idea though that a bunch of teenagers could outsmart, some military trained soldiers, like that's a little out there, but I can see what, they're trying to say about, even the American spirit. And it had hints of like, like, hoorah, we're the US, we can overcome anything. But at the same time, I think we can spoil, right?
Yeah, I mean,
oh, okay. Well, like, dude, they all die. Like, it was such a serious thing, and my favorite scene. We'll get to it, but I was like, damn. I was like, this is actually pretty sad, and it makes you just think about everything that's happening now, and it's a product of its time, but I think the themes and the conversations that you can have stemming from watching this movie, those are like timeless. You know what I mean? And I think that despite all the low ratings, because that's kind of, I was a little surprised, 50% all that. I think this is actually a really underrated movie. If that's the case, I think this needs to be talked about a little bit more and discussed more and used to open a discussion about war and invasions and what the political structures around the world are, because I bet you anything there's a ton of people who don't know what the hell NATO is in this current climate. Like, they don't know what NATO is. They don't even know what it does or what it's for, why was it formed, and things like that. And I think we have to know our history, and not just the U.S. history, but world history. But yeah, no, it was cool. I enjoyed it, so thank you for bringing this one up to my attention, because I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of what Jose was saying, and how when Jeb is talking to the officer who's they found, and they were like, he was helping him. He kept telling him
Powers Boothe.
Yeah, he kept telling him like, all right, you don't need to fight anymore. Like, I got this. You can go. And it's like, you can go home now and sleep. And he's like, nah, man, like, I need to keep fighting. Like, he's like, nah, kid, just do your thing. You don't have to do this. And it's like, this kid's like growing up, and his dad even told him like, you have to avenge me. Yeah. Like, these dudes were brought up to be ready for war. He's like, all that was just like, damn, dude. I don't think a lot of people are being brought up like that anymore at all.
1 second. That's just, thank you. Good grief. All right, so I'm gonna go back to Jose for a quick question. The Cuban, I think he was was he like a colonel, or he was a high-ranking officer, and he was the one who
he was.
He had the brothers in his sights, and he let them go, and he had a philosophy throughout the movie, and I'm sure that every time he spoke and every time there were scenes with that guy, he was a scene stealer, and the way he was made me think that it would have a message, especially for you. You want to touch on that guy at all, Jose?
Well, that was actually my favorite scene, where he has him in the sights and he's about to shoot him, and then he decides to just let him go through. It's like I think at some point, and like you said, his philosophies and everything, he was definitely somebody who he was a scene stealer, but I think he was just fed up. I think at some point, like, they kind of gave up and realized, like, what the hell's the point? But it started off being like, yes, U.S. good, Russia, the invaders are bad, but then it got to the point where it's like, well, why the hell are we fighting? Like, they both just kind of got their fill of death, and you saw it, and he's like, I don't know, man. I think it takes like, he understands, like, there's soldiers, the soldiers that sign up for this crap, that go and they signed up for it. They know that they're gonna put their lives on the line. But when it's two kids, yes, they've been fighting against you, but you're the invader, dude. They're just trying to stay alive. They're trying to survive, bottom line. And if it means needing to take out some guys too and fight for their home, then that's what they're gonna do. It's like you'd be doing the same if the roles were reversed. But I think he recognizes that they're kids. And he's like, they're holding each other, and it's like he's holding his brother, and he knows they're not going to make it. So it's like, why just? It reminds me of, like, you remember when in Breaking Bad, when Mike is getting talked to by Walt, and Walt's just like, I'm sorry, Mike, and he's like trying to justify why he's going to kill him, or why he had to kill him, and then he just tells him, will you just shut the hell up and let me die in peace? It's kind of like, there's no justification, it's just, I don't know. I can't explain it. It's my favorite scene, but I can't even put together the words as to why. I think in the moment when I saw it, I was like, damn. Yeah.
I think he had some good diatribes, throughout the movie, kind of leading up to that moment when he had talked about not being a soldier anymore, but being a policeman. And he had talked about being that he moved up the ranks of military were in his country by being the revolutionary and not by being the incumbent force. And then now they had to come in, and he was playing a different role. And he had explained his sympathies with the American side of that conflict. And I don't know, it just seemed to build to a crescendo that made sense. Does anybody else want to elaborate on this particular portion of the movie?
Well, I mean, even though he had some regrets toward the end of the film, I think it's something that had to build up, because, I mean, he was there for several executions of the people of Calumet, and it's like the brutal kind of stuff. Back in the 80s, they would talk about the Soviets doing that kind of thing wherever they went, and then here you have a movie where they portray it. It's pretty brutal kind of stuff, especially when they have that lineup, I guess, kind of outside of town, and they start singing "America the Beautiful," and then they get gunned down. Man, that was a little bit of a hard scene for me to watch. Even I was like getting slightly emotional deep down in my blackened heart.
Yeah, for sure.
Nope.
So we can dig into not the bucket specifically, but we can talk about roles and acting that happened in this movie. There was a lot of different parts and a lot of different people playing a lot of small parts, but I think the main protagonist in this was Patrick Swayze. So Liz,
at Springfield.
What are your thoughts on Patrick Swayze And did you see any chemistry between him and Aaron Gray in this movie as a prelude to anything in the future?
It's funny that you bring that up because this is the movie that when they were filming Dirty Dancing, they weren't getting along for like the first part of that like movie because of whatever was going on during the filming of Red Dawn. I think it had to do with the fact that like there was a bunch of alpha males on set and her and Leah Thompson just couldn't hang with the guys. And there were some things that were done and said. And yeah. Patrick Swayze he's not an actor. He's more of a dancer. You just give him a little role. For him to like, I don't know. This was rough for me to like see all of but they were very young. And so I think it was a lot of young actors and you get to see kind of where they were starting. This is pre like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. This is pre Dirty Dancing. This is pre like Back to the Future and, all that stuff. The only one that had any like real, I think, acting was
Pre Soul Man.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was C. Thomas Howell, but at that point he had done a whole lot of stuff already. He was probably the one actor in this that had a lot of acting chops behind him.
I wonder if this was before the Outsiders, because a lot of these guys were.
I think the Outsiders was 86 or 88.
Yeah, so this is before the Outsiders, also, huh?
Because he looks really young in the Outsiders, but I don't know, like. The acting on this is like just kind of bad, but I don't know. It's only bad because you could tell, but you could see the potential. Like it was bad, but like I said, the potential was there because you could see where these actors were gonna go, and you knew this was like their start.
Was 83.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the only one that seemed to have any kind of like I said, acting chops that could like do his roles and needed to do it was C. Thomas Howell.
Patrick Swayze was also in The Outsiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
forgot.
Yeah, he was, and it's like they just took half of that group and threw him in with the handful of like new recruits just to see what was gonna happen with it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I liked the movie, but it was a bit choppy and it was a bit kind of disjointed for me. It didn't flow as well as I guess it has to do with more modern movies. Like it just kind of flows a little easier. It was like first they were out in the woods and then they were over here in the plains and then they were back at the grandfather's house of the girls, and then they were like they found she's just out in the field somewhere and she sees a pilot come down. It just seemed like it was a bunch of little pieces and and maybe it was supposed to be like that because you kind of lose track of time when there's war going on, I'm assuming, if you're out there. I mean, it's not like I have any experience, but I'm just saying that when I hear other people talking about it, it's like when you're sitting out there and you're doing this and you're constantly waiting for something to happen, and you lose track of time, and maybe that's part of the story behind it too. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been in war many times on Call of Duty, and you lose track of times when you're playing that game. You lose track.
Is that how it goes?
You just start from
you're just sitting there waiting.
You can start at like 8 a.m. and you'll still be on at like 12 a.m. again. You'll be like, damn, dude, war is hell. War is hell.
That's rough.
Fun, though.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to jump on, piggyback on the Swayze thing, or do you think anybody else?
Well, I was going to say, I think Swayze did a fair job. I think you have to remember that they're playing like high school or just post-high school kids. So it's not like, I think we have this idea because we probably come out of that 90210 generation that like high school kids are supposed to be like full of drama and stuff, but they're actually a bunch of awkward kids. You know what I mean? They're still trying to figure out how to do things right and trying to figure out how to, play better at like football in high school. And I was going to say that like my favorite scene in the movie is the one where they have to execute Daryl. And that's like a rough scene because he's like their buddy, and he grew up with Patrick Swayze, and he's like the class president or whatever, and the son of the mayor. And he gets tortured, gets captured and tortured, forced to swallow a transmitter, and because he's too much of a liability, they have to execute him. And Swayze doesn't have what it takes. The only one that does is the cold-blooded C. Thomas Howell, who's already gone through the ringer, just like comes up and blows him away like no problem, not even like hesitation.
But that's what I mean. Back to when I was talking about with the story being just, when was he taken? How come nobody noticed that he was gone? How
That's
come we
why
didn't
you don't know.
beat up? Like the way that they made it sound is that he was like tortured and all that stuff, and they made him do all this stuff, and it was super scary and really bad. But you don't see, not that I needed to see the torture happen, but like the reaction to the other group. Where is this guy? Where has he been? Now he's come back and he's hurt. Is he okay? You know what I mean? None of that was done, and I don't know.
Because it was supposed to be like damn, he backstabbed them.
And they wanted us
It's
to
like
see
what they needed to do
saw.
is they needed to show, can these kids be adults, or can these kids handle themselves in their own little like society? It's like they had their own little society, their own little group, and can they handle?
They did show that though. That's like what the whole movie is about. It's
No,
about them.
but they needed something like that to happen in order for them to show that it was like I think it was like a forced thing. I don't know.
I saw the foreshadowing of Thomas C. Howell, like he was gonna start becoming a crazy person, like down to the murder your buddy when he was drinking the deer's blood. I thought he was going for a second drink because he like hid and he's like, yeah, I did it. It's good. It's good, right? It's good. He's like, it's good, right? It's good. And he's like, he's slowly mentally preparing himself to do some wild shit.
When I was a kid, me and my homies used to play guns and in the neighborhood, and like this movie had such an influence on us, and we all wanted to be C. Thomas Howell when we were picking. Like, I want to be the guy who's just.
You guys
shoot you
played
in the face.
this movie as children?
Dude, the punji pits, bro. Like, we were pretty.
Hey, when I saw them pop out of the ground and shoot up all those dudes, I thought of you.
Dude, we were like, we were no joke, dude. We were no joke when we were kids, man. It was fun times. You play guns with us. We'd have dirt clod fights, and the day before we would go and dig the mud, put rocks into the dirt, and then make our own dirt clods, form them, and there was a rock inside, and we would prep them. Everybody else was just picking up dirt clods and throwing them. We had prepped the ones that were like nuclear armed on the inside that would have a rock.
To blind a motherfucker. Jesus.
We didn't even think of the consequence. We just thought that this is gonna, like, if that one hurts, this one's gonna hurt way more. We didn't think about it like when it cracked Homeboy's skull. We didn't.
Let's send a motherfucker to the hospital.
And sure enough, when the kid gets hit by the dirt clod, he's crying on the ground by himself, and everybody else is scattered in 5 different directions. It's just nobody helps him. That was rough. The 80s are amazing, man. Every cartoon we watched was prepping us to be warriors. It was a good time. All right, so you guys can throw your final thoughts on anything we've got going on, and we'll just roll them into the buckets. I'll start with Jose. What are your thoughts on the buckets on this one, bud?
So, like I said, I think 50%, 60%, that's way too low. I'd give it a little bit more respect. But I now that I think about it, Liz, it did kind of seem like they were starting to flush out a sort of Lord of the Flies feel. And then they just kind of ditched it. Now that I think about it, that you pointed it out, I was like, oh, that's true, huh? And it did kind of seem, I think this is like, what, an hour and 20 minutes? It didn't seem that long.
An hour and 40 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, it didn't seem that long. It seemed like it moved
hell,
quickly.
Dude.
But with that being said, there are some parts where it does feel a little bit choppy and they don't explain some stuff. And I think, I don't know, maybe time restraints, but I would have liked to have seen some of that, like I mentioned, some of that Lord of the Flies element mixed in. I think if you would have added another 10 minutes, it would have helped a little. But nonetheless, I want to give this one a solid 8 out of 10.
Nice.
I think that, you know, it's important. It's not perfect, and that's what sucks, that it doesn't have the cultural impact, and it doesn't have that. I think people remember it, but I don't think enough people talk about it. And like I said, I had heard of it, and I think, to be honest, when you said Red Dawn, the first one I thought of, if you hadn't posted up that picture, was actually the Chris Hemsworth one. So very shameful, but it's the truth. You know, it's kind of just, it's a product of its time, but I think that you can always use it in a history class, or even just something to teach the kids. You know, like, I like this whole alternative reality shit, or, you know, alternative history, because I think it's important, and I think it helps kind of teach you what the powers that be are.
Oh, how important certain moments in time are, to where you can send history this way or send history that way.
Which is why I really enjoyed Stephen King's 11/22/63. Forget the name, but it's supposed to be like an alternate reality if JFK hadn't been assassinated. And it's interesting to look at, and when people do some thorough research, it pans out really well. And I think that's what it was missing. It had a good flow. It had a good, not a flow. I don't mean to say flow, but it worked. But I think that it was just missing this little piece here and there, maybe, because I chalk it up to, you know, it's Hollywood. They want a certain story to be told, but handled in the right. I haven't seen the remake. I'm kind of interested to see how they handle it. But yeah, I'm gonna give this one an 8 out of 10.
That's a good score. I think as far as cultural relevance goes, for it to get a remake, you know, it did carry some weight, for sure.
True.
All right, Isaac, Madrid, Comic Cave, let's go.
Flashing back to his war years.
Like, I'm going back to war, and I was just seeing my buddy get gunned down by my other buddy, who I made drink deer's blood 2 months ago. That's when it happened. I would give it I think I'll stick with what Jose said on the 8 buckets. It is pretty good. It's a pretty good war movie for kids. I think I would have enjoyed it if I would have been like you and I would have watched it at a young age, and it would have influenced me to want to throw rocks at children and hurt others, all in the sake of the US of A. So yeah, 8 buckets.
I didn't throw rocks at children, man. We were children throwing rocks at each other. Get it straight. All right, Scotts.
There you go. Out the first, like I said, I've seen parts of this movie. This is the first time I've seen it all the way through, and you know, there was a few things here and there that I looked at Josh. We had to pause it and go, why did they think they could do this, or how come this happened this way? He's like, oh, I think I explain it later. So I pulled one of those during this movie, but I think it's a good movie for what I think they were just trying to do. Like Jose also was saying, is that I think they were trying to tell a bit of a war movie, like what if the US was taken over type situation, and how it could be done in that time. But I mean, we were also sort of in the Cold War still, the height of the Cold War and all that fun stuff. So it was a product of its time that way. I do want to see the remake to see if they, you know, made the story just a little more like cohesive, just to see what they would do.
See the remake, Josh?
You don't have to watch it. You don't have to watch it, okay? I mean, I only want to see it just to see if they, like I said, to me, the movie seemed a bit disjointed. Like they wanted to tell this and they wanted to show this and how they deal with this. It was like situational that they kind of mushed together into the movie that it is. But I wonder if with a more modern writer or take, or, you know, if they made a more cohesive story in the remake. That's all. But I liked the actors. Like I said, I like seeing them in their at the beginning of their careers. It's just kind of cool to see that, and I did enjoy it. I give it a 7 out of 10. I don't know that I'd watch it again, but watching it, I'm glad I did, because now I can say what's one more 80s movie that I hadn't watched that now I can say I've watched.
Awesome.
So I think this movie does fairly well on the acting. I think they give what would be required for the roles that they're playing. So I think that's good. I think the movie is still fun to watch. I enjoyed it. Maybe it didn't have the same kind of impact as when I was a kid, because I'm with you, Nate. That movie spurred us to run around the neighborhood and attack each other with wild abandon. But I think you could probably make an argument that there's something to be said about the directing. John Milius directed Conan the Barbarian, and it seems to me that this one is not up to the snuff of that earlier film. So this is like a step down for him. So I would expect more from a director of his caliber. And it does have some forward legacy. I mean, like you said, they did do a remake of it, and I don't know too many people, except for some reason, this group of people who hadn't seen it before. It was pretty foundational to most of us growing up in the 80s. So I'm inclined to give this a hard 7.
Well, I was born in 88, so
no pass.
My mom took me to go watch this while I was in the mood, and I came out because I was like, man, fuck this.
Back in, like, man, hit me when Ghostbusters come out.
This one I'm going to give it an 8 also. Lots of nostalgia on this one. I remembered the girls saying more than 10 words originally. I thought the girls were,
because you were infatuated with them.
It wasn't even that. I thought girls were yucky when I was watching this movie, but it was more like when we were doing those war games in the neighborhood, because of the girls were badass in this movie, we let the girls come and play, our friends' little sisters and whatnot. Whereas before that, we would just be like, go play with dolls, you're dumb. Like, you can't run and shoot and do what we're going to do. And we saw these chicks doing it, and Leah Thompson with the freaking, it was just like, oh, girls are awesome too. So, that was some inclusionism that affected our little circle of friends growing up in North Long Beach in the 80s. So there we go. Hopefully we get Lego back soon, but that was my movie, Red Dawn, and I'll be back hosting again in another 6 weeks. In the meantime, we're going to be passing the torch this week on to Josh. Mr. Scott, what do we got in mind?
There's a lot of movies on my list, but I wanted to do one that was a little bit of a turn from this one. You complained about not getting enough girls in action. I thought to go full blast on that. I'm a big fan of Zack Snyder, so we're going to be doing Sucker Punch.
Oh, cool. That's a good one. And that one's old enough now, huh?
Yeah, 2011.
We double checked.
Wow. Nice. Cool. Next week we'll be having
Oscar Isaac with his sexy little mustache.
The power of the stash.
Calm down.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week.